Hi, everybody. It's good to be with you again. And I am Rabbi Kogan, for those who are just joining us today for the first time. And I am with my friends and colleagues. And we are going to discuss the Torah portion. And I hope what we share, you find it meaningful. For me, it's a very a key element appears in this Torah portion. And just to summarize it, Korach, from the tribe of Levi, Datan, and Abiram, and On, Ben Pelet, and 250 leaders are going to challenge the authority of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses and Aaron, and are going to tell Moses and Aaron, Rab Lachem, enough for you. Ki kol ha'ida kulam kedoshim, the entire congregation is holy, everybody is holy, everybody is special. Umadua titnasu al keal Adonai, and why do you pretend to be above the congregation of Hashem? In other words, who made you a leader? Why are you the leaders? Why are you in charge? So this is at the center of this Torah portion. Hopefully, you will hear more from my colleagues, my friends. But I want just to plant the seed for the conversation. And Korach makes what apparently is a very good claim. Everybody is special. Kulam kedoshim. We are all holy. Hashem said to them, kedoshim tiyu, you shall be holy. Everybody, not only the priests. So why are you in charge? In other words, this is a democratic society. This should be a democratic model. This is with what Korach is suggesting and his people. And Moshe and Aaron and God are going to show Korach, his followers, and the entire congregation, entire community, all the children of Israel, that the Torah doesn't advocate for a democratic model. That the Torah, and I would say Judaism in general, especially when it comes to leadership, is not a democratic model. We believe, or we hold, because we are citizens in democratic societies, that democracy is the highest model of organization. And I just wanted to think that the Torah is not one of them. The Torah, someone says, I am in charge and you are not. So I will just leave it here. There are different ways for people to be in charge, some based on election of God, some based on their DNA, and some based on their on the knowledge of the participants. But bottom line is that it will be demonstrated that they are not everybody is holy, or at least not on the same level. So I have more to share, but let me stop here and see where my colleagues take it.
So since this is the parsha of the descent, I have to dissent with you, Rabbi Kogan.
I agree.
Not agree with you.
I still love you.
I still love you too. So let me tell you first, thank you for this summary of the parsha. Thank you for the summary of the story between Korach and Moshe. One of my problems with Korach is exactly what you were pointing out. And he thinks that Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim. He thinks that holiness is something that is inherent to every single human being, particularly to every Israelite, as Korach says. And I think that's a mistake, because Kedusha, in my opinion, in my view, Kedoshim and holiness, is it not something that you are born with? We do not believe that when we are born, we are holy. We believe, as Parashat Kedoshim says, that we should walk the path of holiness. We should add holiness to our lives. But Korach shows, or wants to pretend and show, that everyone is holy. And I think that holiness is something that we could reach in our lives. It's a continued path that we should walk. But according to Parashat Kedoshim, at least, we shall be holy in the future. And it's something that we are all the time trying to achieve, but it's not something that we are born with. And I think that's one of the mistakes that Korach makes, arguing and saying that we are inherently holy when we are born, and that's something that inherently belongs to us as human beings.
Let me, I will agree with Rabbi Kormis, but I will take it even a step further, because what is the text that we read right before the beginning of Parashat Korach? The text that closes Parashat Shlach Lecha is the third part of the Shema. It's the third part of the Shema in which we read as well. If I can find it here, don't go away. It's so we need to put the fringes, the tzitziot, on our garments, and we need to remember that we were taken from Egypt, and that we are on this journey from Egypt to the promised land. Leman tizkeru, so you shall remember, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, and do all of the commandments, v'yitem kedoshim, and you should, it's as Rabbi Kormis was saying, this is the goal. It's not what we are. It's not the ontological assumption that our DNA is special. It's the horizon that we need to strive and walk towards. What I think, going to a different place from Rabbi Kormis, something that Ishayahu Leibovich used to say, we never get to be holy. Holiness is the horizon to which we always aspire. But as the horizon, what happens when you see the horizon? You walk towards the horizon just for the horizon to keep moving. So you never get there, but it's where you should strive to go. It's like our moral compass, in which you never get there. And I think that there is an existential crisis, because we need to live with the idea that we won't get it. But at the same time, it's actually better than reaching the top of the mountain. And then the question is, what's next? But I will stop here, and I will allow the rest of my colleagues to jump in.
So speaking of the position or the place where this parasha is located, and relating to that, I think I want to bring another layer and say that it's not a coincidence that this parasha comes here. First of all, Korach presents this when he realizes that the people of Israel will have to wander 40 years in the desert after the parashat of Shlach. Now that Moses, the leadership is down, now I'm going to take advantage and go against Moses and Aaron, because of what happened in the previous parasha. Is been decreed that they will be 40 years in the desert. Because of that, I'm going to rebel, says Korah. But according to Maimonides, Ein Mukdam Umeuchar Batorah, and Maimonides says that this rebellion even took place before Mount Sinai, before we became a holy nation, before we received the commandments. There was a claim that we are Kedoshim. Korach brings that claim. So I don't want to speak in favor of Korach, because if we see that after Ma'amad Har Sinai, we could say, okay, we are Kulam Kedoshim, in favor of Korach. And going by Maimonides, you could say Korach had the claim before Ma'amad Har Sinai, before the commandments were given, and put us all on the same category. But on the topic of what Rabbi Kogan presented, I want to see further in the text and see what happens later, and see that, later in the text, the way it's going to be decided who is going to be the one who leads the people is by a shaked. Yes, makel shaked. It's an almond tree. First of all, why an almond tree? The almond tree is the first one to flourish. Ashkedia porachat. We sing for Tu Bishvat, is the first tree to flourish. So the first one to flourish is the leader, is the number one. But the word shaked has the same letters of the word kadosh. So at the end of the day, we are not kulam kedoshim. There's one leader. And that goes together with what Rabbi Kogan was saying, that, leadership, the democracy is a great value, but it's not what the Torah is telling us at the end of the day in the Torah itself.
Thank you, Rabbi.
We can bring, we can vote. We can vote if you want. We can vote, but
Be careful, Rabbi Karpuch. It's all on you.
No, thank you. And I think that Rabbi Wervin just gave us a little hint about the issue, the way I'm reading it, that it has nothing to do with Kedoshim, like with we're all holy. That's just an argument. There's a second rebellion happening at the same time, right? With Datan and Aviram and On Ben Pelet, that they don't say we're Kedoshim, right? There's like a kind of two things going at the same time. I think that the issue here, and here I will disagree with Rabbi Kogan, is that I don't think that we are, I'm sorry, but I don't think that what we are trying to bring here is democracy. He's not, Korach is not saying, look, why are you the leader? Let's have a vote with the entire congregation to see who they want to be their leader, right? That's not what he's asking. He said, like, no, I want to be the leader, not you. Or you can say, well, I want to share some of the leadership with you, whatever you want to read this. I think that the issue here is not about democracy or not democracy, and I agree, there's no democracy in the Torah. But also it's not the case, it's not what the Korach is pushing forward. He doesn't want elections, free elections. He just wants to be the leader. Yes. Rashi, right, says, what's the whole issue with Korach, right? Vaikach Korach, and Korach took. And it's like, what did he take? And Rashi explains, he took himself out of the community, right? He didn't want to, he had his own agenda. He didn't want to be part of the community. He didn't want to be a democratic leader chosen by his people. He just wanted to be the leader. He has his own thing. And that's why I don't think that the discussion can equate the issue of democracy here.
I like to say, let me say something, it's just a huge parenthesis, has nothing to do with Korach, but I just feel I want to say it. I would like Rabbi Kuliok to show to our viewers what you have in your hand. Just explain to them. Just okay. Show them what you have there.
This is what democratic leaders drink, which is a mate.
Bring it closer.
This is a mate, and this I would say Argentinian, but also in some Latin American countries, we drink this. I don't know.
It's the national beverage of Argentina.
Yeah, I don't know what Rabbi Wervin is trying to say because he's muted.
He's muted.
Right.
I mean, what Rabbi Kuliok is showing you is a drink with a cup. This is a mate. Okay? Just for you to understand, this is a mate.
Why
okay.
Why that mate?
I created a monster. Okay, let me take it. Let me say something about what Rabbi Karpuch just said. Because first of all, I need to agree with Rabbi Kormis and Rabbi Kuliok. I also understand that Kedoshim is not a fact, it's an aspiration. I also read Leibovich. I am familiar with that. So that to say that point. And Rabbi Karpuch, I also agree. Korach wants to be a leader. He says, I want to be in charge, but it's not politically correct to say I want to be in charge. So, because if he says I want to be in charge, then he needs to explain why he's better. And he's not better, actually. So he says, this is where he's a demagogue. He says, everybody is holy. Hashem is, and Hashem is within us. So he invokes religion, he invokes the presence of God. So this is, but we know, and I know, and Moshe knew that he wants to be a leader. And that's why Moshe immediately says, Rab lachem bnei Levi, ameat mikem. Enough for you. It's not enough that you are number second. It's not enough. That's the question. It's not enough. The answer is, for Korach, it's not enough. For Korach needs to be number one. And number one, there is only one. There is one, which is God, who is giving the authority and is bringing of his holiness and distributing to people, not in equal shares. And the entire book of Numbers, just look at it, is a reminder to all of us that is not equally shared, not equally on the spice, not equally between Aaron and Miriam and Moshe, not equally with Datan and Abiram and Korach, not equally with Eldad and Meldad and 70 or 72 and the rest of the people. Not everybody was at the burning bush. So, you know, just of course, in some cases is merit. Some cases is the ability to bring change. Like Aaron can make something flourish. The others cannot. But to say that we are all equal, even in holiness, is not true. And he's using that specifically not to be equal, but to be in charge. And Moshe found out, and we found out as well.
I think that there's something here that makes the Torah different from any other situation, particularly from our situation. You have a God who is actively engaging in history and choosing someone. Nobody has a doubt who chose Moshe. When Moshe disappears before the parasha of the golden calf, the people come and says to Aaron, bring us another leader, right? They don't say, let's go and choose a leader. Let's have elections to see who wants us to take us to the land. You go and talk to God and bring us a leader because Moshe, we don't know where he is. So we're talking about a society who is expecting God to choose their leader. We live in a different world in which we don't have that God acting in such an obvious way in history. So we have to find other ways in order to
even when we have, even when it's going to change the model and we are going to have the rabbi, the sage as the leader, starting for the last 2,000 years, not everybody knows the same. Not everybody is the chief rabbi. Not everybody is a Nasi. And people have a problem with that, rabbis. People have a problem. My congregants, I don't know if your congregants, when they say Korach is right. That's their first instinct. And I just like to think why.
And it's not wrong that they have that instinct, and I think we all have that instinct in some ways. But I think there's something that, again, I think Korach, I want to play devil advocate. He has something. He has some, he has a point at some point, in some ways, and it says, "Boker veyoda Hashem et asher lo ve'et hakadosh." Okay, why they need to wait, overnight, and in the morning God will decide and will show, because in the Boker, in the morning, we need clarity. In the Erev, it's meurvav. Everything is mixed, and we need that clarity. Okay, in the Boker, it's like, yes, we need to know why. You need to prove yourself as a leader, and even in the Torah, there's no special reason why Moses was the chosen one. So God brings the clarity and says, Boker veyoda. In the morning, when everybody can see it, I will prove it. And the point that Korach was bringing is, okay, I mean, I think that Korach did not agree to that, but for God it was important that everybody will know. It's a reinforcement. And later, when the Kohanim will bring the matanot and the offerings, it's a reinforcement also for Aaron leadership as well. So the leadership needs to be clear and need to be sustained by the people. And that's what I think brings clarity in this parsha, that whether it's a democracy or it's not a democracy, the leadership needs to be clear and understood and agreed by the people.
To me, it's clear that the Torah is not a democratic book. It's not a book that is asking us to build a democratic society. Actually, you can see that clearly from the Tanakh itself, right? Because you have leaders that were appointed by God, like Moses and Aaron. Then you have the Shoftim, the judges, who were also appointed by God. You have the kings, you have the Melachim, who also have a different status within the Jewish tradition. Then you have the Nasi, then you have the Rosh Galuta, right, that will lead the community in Babylon. So the nature of Judaism is not a democratic nature, and it's fine. I'm fine with that, because our society needs different roles for different people. Why do we have, you know, firefighters and police officers, and we have nurses and we have doctors and we have rabbis and we have teachers, right? So because the society is built upon different elements of it. So I think that there is nothing wrong by saying, you know what, God chose someone to lead. Okay, probably that's not what we would expect today in our modern Judaism. And proof of that is that the state of Israel is a democratic state, right? And probably the only democracy in the Middle East, because we embrace democracy. We believe that democracy today is the best way to govern the Jewish people. But back then, it was not. And even more, the idea, I think that the Torah is one step forward than other religions. When you go to the Egyptians, right? And when you go to the Mesopotamians, right? There is no way how you could even worship God. How could you connect to God? And we see that as part of the Torah and the Jewish people, you have that personal contact, that personal communication that each person experienced, for example, at Mount Sinai, right? And it's different from the other religions where people didn't have access to it.
Well, let me, I would dissent because it's the part of the dissent. And yeah, it might be that in the Torah, the model doesn't seem to allow for a lot of, feedback from the people in regards to what they want and how they want it. But I think that as we move away from the Torah and into the times of the sages, although democracy doesn't happen as we believe it today, it's very clear that the rabbis begin developing a different model of consensus in, for example, determining and deciding what is the halacha. So, there are very clear indicators that lo b'shamayim hi, the Torah is not in heaven, and we will decide on majority vote, even if going against God. And the same happens in the way we choose our leaders. So there is that famous story in the tractate of Brachot, in the Talmud, about taking out Rabban Gamliel and choosing who's gonna be in his stead. Do you remember that famous story? And Rabbi Akiva cannot, because it's part of the problem, but he's also poor, there's no pedigree. So clearly there is some things that will make for a decision of who is going to lead, but they come to some sort of an agreement. And by the same token, this is idea that the three crowns, the crown of the kingdom is not to be shared or whatever, it's in the family of David. The crown of the Kohanim, the priestly crown, is for those who are the descendants of Aaron. But the crown of Torah is open to everyone, maybe in different chances, as Rabbi Kogan was saying. It's not that we can all aspire to become sages at the same level, but there is, my point here is that there is an opening. I think my claim is that the rabbis are not so fond of the model of no choosing. And they think something different. That's my point. It's not the democracy of today, but it's moving away from this is the leader for now and forever.
If I can add.
Sorry, back in the time, the crown of Torah was, I want to disagree with you, with your permission. Excuse me, Rabbi Karpuk, you were going to say something probably much more profound and clever than me. But, back in the time, the crown of Torah was also a little bit selective. Only those who were able to afford going and study back in the yeshivot.
But there is a tension. There's the famous story with Hillel.
Well, yes, but you had to pay to go in.
Until Rabban Gamliel was kicked out.
If you didn't have the money, you couldn't go in.
Rabban Gamliel is out.
It was still exclusive back then. So the only one that it depends on you is the crown of a good name. All the three crowns are exclusive. And one halacha says that if someone takes the pulpit and starts leading davening, and the people, I am about to start, leading the service, and comes Rabbi Kogan, who is also a Kohen like me. We are from the same tribe, and starts leading and starts without even asking permission from me. There's only one way to prevent from Rabbi Kogan from taking the pulpit that I was supposed to do, and the people will not answer amen to Rabbi Kogan. It depends on the people. So the people will validate that leadership. You need that as well. So we no need to forget that, yes, leadership is, you can inherit, but it needs to be validated by people.
Right. So what I was about to say actually was exactly on that same venue of the Shem Tov, right? That's at the end of the day is the most important of the crowns, right? And I think that if I can connect this with what we're discussing in the Parsha, I think the problem with Korach is that he doesn't have the people. It's about himself. He doesn't have that Shem Tov. The model of the Torah is not democratic, but it's also a system that actually allows for dissent. But it depends on how you come into that dissent. I think that Korach is the last of these rebellions that we have been reading through several weeks, right? From the spies and Aaron and Miriam, and right. So, and each one of them has been put down. When you come to Moshe and to God with dissent or with questioning authority from a place of kedusha, if you want, the doors are open. You can see that both in the case of Pesach Sheni, right? When they come and says, why can we celebrate Pesach if we were impure at that moment? And you will see it later on in the story of the daughters of Tzlofchad, who says, I think it's unjust that we cannot inherit because we are all daughters, right, of our father. And by the way, our father was not with Korach. Our father was not one that wanted to just get away and claim things that. So in those, if you come from that place of the good name with the Shem Tov, you can totally have a place to dissent and to change even Moshe or God's idea, right, or mind, if you want.
Allow me to bring another perspective to the conversation. When I discuss this topic of Kedusha, and I would like to link Kedusha with democracy. I think that they are connected and deeply connected, going back to what Rabbi Kogan was suggesting. When I study or teach this idea of Kedusha, of holiness from a Jewish perspective, I always talk about three different elements. I talk about holy time, holy place, and holy people. And if you think about it, Kedusha is really connected to these three elements. And the Torah speaks about holy times. The Torah speaks about holy places like the Kodesh HaKodashim. And the Torah also speaks about holy people that we shall be holy. So if you think about it for a moment, it's interesting. Let me finish. I think that there is a difference between time, place, and people, because people cannot be holy according to our tradition. People are always walking towards this path of holiness. A place also cannot be holy because we talk about the Kodesh HaKodashim, which only the Kohen HaGadol could get there. But there is one element and there is one thing that is holy in Judaism that is about this democratic principle, and that's the holiness of time. And we all share the holiness of time, regardless if you are a super chacham or an Am Haaretz, regardless if you are super rich or you are a poor person, we all share this element of holiness in time. And that's the reason why I think the first thing that the Torah says that is holy is not a place and it's not a person, it is time, Vayikadesh Oto, because we find democracy in time, and that's the Shabbat. Once a week, we have the opportunity to share together that democratic element in Judaism, which is also holy, which is the Shabbat. And I think that Heschel talked about it in his book beautifully. And I think that that's a very powerful message for the people who are watching us today and our viewers today, talking to our viewers. I think that when we find something that can bring us all together, it is the holiness of time.
I want to, that what you just said was beautiful, and I raised my hand because next week we are going to talk about a holy cow. So I couldn't holy cow. Anyway, okay. I couldn't holy people, holy place, and holy time. But I was going to add a holy cow.
Let me mention one thing because I like to I think that what I like to put or to share or just to set here is that I think that, I won't say everybody, but some people among the five of you have a problem with some people not being equal to the others. And again, democracy is we all can vote. We all have one vote. Okay, I'm okay with that, okay? But I think, coming back to Rabbi Kuliok, to the appointment of Rabbi Lazar Ben Azaria, there are three conditions that he needed to have. He needed to be wealthy, he needed to be a Talmid Chacham, knowledgeable in Torah, and he needs to come from a very high pedigree, from Dor Asiri Ezra. Rabbi Akiva, great sage, he cannot be in charge. Okay, number one. I'd like also to tell you a little about my experience growing up, and that is that I was not a great soccer player, and it was very important to play. Yes, and some of you were. I mean, compared to the average American rabbi, I am pretty good. But in Argentina, I was not good. So you know what? At the end of the day, you know, the coach said, you know, the important thing is to participate. The important thing is to make friends. Everybody get the medal, you know, and we got the medal and we were happy. Okay? The truth is that it's not true. It's not true. And everybody knew that. Everybody knew that. And not everybody should get the medal. We say the important thing is to participate and to have friends. This is not something that even though the coach believes it. So when we say the important thing is the Shem Tov, okay? Again, I agree. For me, is the most important thing is the Shem Tov. But our society doesn't value the Shem Tov. It's not try to enter, you know, into Harvard with the Shem Tov. You are not going to. Try to get a top job with the Shem Tov. You are not going to get there. So again, you are not also going to learn Torah with the Shem Tov. So yes, it is an important thing, but we have a problem. We have a problem, and I just want to put it there. We have a problem saying that there are people who are on top and some people who are not. Some people who are in charge and some people who are not. Some people who are better at something than other people. And I think this is a message in the Torah.
I don't have a problem with that. With
what's the problem with that?
I don't have a problem with one on the top, and I think, Rabbi Kogan, that you will agree that at the end of the day, Keter Shem Tov Ole Al Kula. You know, it's more important at the end of the day.
Yes, I agree.
So it doesn't matter if you went to Harvard or you went to Montgomery College or other college. Keter Shem Tov, the crown of a good name, it's above everything else. So it doesn't matter if you were on the top or if you were on the bottom. And when the coach said everyone participates and everyone needs to have fun, I think part of it is because of the coach at the end of the day knows that you can be on the top of the mountain, and after there, so what? You've been up to the top, and after that, what?
But you want to teach your son, that sometimes he's going to make the team and sometimes he's going to sit in the bench. And that's okay.
That is correct.
And he needs to learn that. He needs to learn that.
Correct, but also he needs to know that if the rival falls, you don't step on the rival. You raise the rival to continue playing.
I understand, but you are not going to go to the coach and you're going to say, Coach, put my son in the team.
Well, he will, but I think that the issue is, I think that you're mixing things here. One thing is to say those who eventually need to play and those who play better will play. And the other, I think that the problem I have with the idea that we're not equals or we're not all equals is the idea that a priori we're not equals. I think that that a priori, when you go and you're 6 years old and you're going to play soccer for the first time, you're all equals. And then by age 9, some of you will be playing in the first team and some will be sitting in the bench. If you, when you get to 6, when you're 6, they will say, who is your family and who is your parent? No, Kogans, you don't have any pedigree, so you cannot start playing, period. Then I have a problem. I think that that's the difference. We're not saying that everybody is equal all the way, but that at least you should try to have everyone like starting on the same place, and then everyone will show what they have or not.
Now,
I can live with that.
I think that's a very important point here. I just finished, actually I started again. There is a book by a philosopher, contemporary philosopher, one of my favorite writers, Alain de Botton. He writes a book, Status Anxiety. And among the things that he claims is that when you know, especially the American culture came with this idea that we are all equal in 1776, we came with this thing that now that we are all equal, all inequalities that still exist make us all very anxious, and they make us feel terrible. So we believe that we are all equal, but then you don't get to Harvard or you don't get to play soccer because we are not so equal. And so the author says that one of the advantages of the the medieval world or whatever was that it was very clear that if you were royalty, you were here. If you were not, you are there. And I'm so sorry. There is nothing you can do to change that. Now that we all believe that we are equal, all the inequalities that we see all around us make us feel very, very wrong. And that creates a whole lot of anxiety. So it certainly brings up the question of how to deal with the society that is creating this inner tension and contradiction in between. Yes, we come forward with the message of we are all equal, but then we know that it's not true.
I want to challenge.
Don't fight. It's good that you are willing to.
Going back to what Rabbi Karpuk was saying and what you were saying, what you were describing is the ideal scenario, right? That you won't care about the last name, you won't care about if it's a rich guy or if it's a poor guy, but it doesn't work like that, right? We know, and I remember when I was playing soccer and I was not as good as Rabbi Wervin. Rabbi Wervin was, he's a crack. He's good, he's good. So I remember that the coach would put, the kids of a person who would be part of the board of Maccabi or who would be part of the board of a certain organization. And the same happened in other fields. So that's the ideal world. But in the real world, we know that it doesn't work that way.
I just want to say, I want to start with a story. 12 years ago, I had the amazing pleasure of accompanying my oldest daughter to visit different colleges to see where she wanted to apply when she was a junior in high school. And we went to Harvard. And we were doing the tour of the school, and she says to me, I don't like it, I won't apply here. And I said, what do you mean you are not applying here? I don't want you to come here, but I want you to apply and to be accepted so I can tell my friends that my daughter was accepted at Harvard.
And she said,
I was joking with her. I was joking with her because I think that I just want to put here, like this idea that success in life is just measured by which school did you go to, which job did you get, and those kind of things is at the end of the day very problematic because puts a goal that it's unattainable for most people and it just gets you frustrated. You should do the best you can, but there are many paths to be happy, to have a meaningful life, and most important, to build a life that will live a Shem Tov.
Rabbi Kogan, I think, thank you, Rabbi Karpuk, nice story. And Rabbi Kogan, you wanted to share something else with that about someone who was saved, because the story of Korach.
It's beautiful to have the last word.
Maybe we
no, you can have the last word.
It's a democracy, so we can
argue with you.
I also want to just to say about something that Rabbi Karpuk said. I agree that when you are 6 years old, everybody should be equal and everybody should have equal access. And our society is an unfair society in which people don't have equal access to even to success. So that's something that we need to work on. But even when the ideal society where people will have access to the same equal access to success or to possibilities, not everybody is going to be equal. And I think that we need to be able to live with that. there is a story in the Talmud about this Torah portion, which is one of my favorite stories. And at the beginning, among the rebels, we find an individual called On ben Pelet, On the son of Pelet, and then we don't find him. And the Talmud asks, what happened with On ben Pelet? Why is he not there in the revolt? And the Talmud brings a wonderful story and says his wife saved him. So they say, what did she do? So she told him a very, very, I would say, harsh truth that he probably have some problems hearing. He says, listen, right now when Moshe is in charge, you are second. When Korach is going to be in charge, you are going to continue to be second. And in one way or another, you are not going to be number first. So what you are going to gain? And he says, you are right, but I already gave them my word that I will be in the revolt. So his wife saves him in a trick, I'm not going to bring it here, but because it's not important to my point, and hides him in her tent, and he gets saved, and he's not being swallowed by the ground. But my point, which I think is the beauty of this story, that his wife tells him, you know what, you are going to be second, one way or another. To Moshe, you are second. To Korach, you are going to be second. And he says, you know what, honey, you know what, beloved wife, you are right. And I love you, and I am going to be happy with you. And I am going to be happy being second. I can find meaning in life. I can find meaning in being with you. I can enjoy life, and I can still be second. And I think this is something that I need to, for me, it's a wonderful message, because we have our society who is bombarding us all the time. You need to be first. You need to be first. Who remembers the second person who stepped into the moon? Who remembers? The idea is that if you are second, even if you are second among 10 million people, nobody will know your name unless you are first. And I think that even if you are third, fourth, fifth, or 10th, or even if you only have, if you have a Shem Tov, and that is your big merit, you are entitled to happiness, to joy, to access to Hashem, even though you are second in other areas. And I think this is, at least for me, one of the messages of this Torah portion. And I am done with me.
Thank you. Very nice, Rabbi Kogan. I think you skipped a very important part of that story as well. Because what did his wife do to him? What did his wife do to him when he was in the tent?
He gave him to drink wine.
Oh, okay. So sometimes you need a little bit of,
encouragement. Yes.
There you go.
You need encouragement. You need someone who will love you even if you are second.
Correct.
His wife didn't tell him,
exactly.
Go and be first. Go and challenge Moshe. His wife says, honey, I love you the way you are. It's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful
And I agree with you, but that part to me is also important, that you need the support, you need the encouragement, you need the tools, and that's the point. We need all those things that sometimes we lack, and we don't get it out there because the society puts us the message that we need to be the number one all the time, and we need the tools to be sameach bechelko, to be happy with what we have.
But not only that, I think that the message of the story in the Talmud is like, she loves him for what he is,
correct,
not for the position that he's aspiring to get. And if we are surrounded by people who will only love us for the position that we get, that is abat tluya badavar. So that's the love that is depending on something external, and that type of love, we all know that is not going to be sustained. So
we are agreeing now.
Yes. I agree with you, and I was talking about from the point of view of On, not of his wife. His wife loves him regardless of the position, but he needs to have the tools to be happy with what he has.
Correct. So he needs to understand that as well.
Correct.
I think
And
that
he
he got
does,
it.
and he does.
Yeah.
His wife tells him, and he says, "What can I do? I already gave them my word." He doesn't say to her, "You are not right." He says, not only that, he's second to her also in the story, and it's fine and it works well.
I think this is a great topic for another discussion. And my problem with this topic has always been, where is the limit? Where is the limit to say, I am happy with what I have, versus I have to keep trying, and I have to keep moving, and I have to keep, doing things that will advance my career, that will advance my position, that will advance who I am today. So where is the limit between saying, yes, I'm happy, that's it, and then saying, you know what, there is much more to do. There's much more things that I want to accomplish in my life.
I want to say two things. First, I would say Buzz Aldrin. He was the second person to walk in the moon.
Okay.
And thank you for an amazing conversation and discussion. And I'm really happy for all of you that next week you're all catching up with me, because you will be reading 2 parshiot. I will only reading Balak, but we'll all be back into the same calendar. So it's
Holy cow. Holy cow.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. Always a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you very much. See you next week. Bezrat Hashem.